Every morning when I walk my dogs, I spin the exact same PokeStop. The game has already been loaded. I have been catching Pokemon, and I spin the PokeStop because that's the one along the way for my walk. I have a PhD in computer science. I've taught courses in cloud native systems. I spent entire episodes of the show telling you what good architecture looks like, and I've been playing a mobile game since the summer of 2016 that I could take apart in front of my own students as a case study in almost everything I tell them not to do. I'm not talking about Pokemon Go being simple. Simple is fine. Simple is often correct. I'm talking about a game that reused a decade-old dataset instead of building its own, fixed a broken core system by relocating the failure instead of resolving it, shipped its headline feature to a feature nobody actually even really uses, and has been more or less continuously one of the most successful mobile apps ever made. That's not a contradiction. I'm going to resolve it by the end of this, because that's the actual subject. So welcome back to Chaotic Commits. I'm Joanne Skiles, and today, as you can tell, I'm going to walk you through Pokemon Go, the way I'd walk through a production system in a design review, because underneath the Pikachu and the incense and the community day events, it actually is one. It has a data layer, a state machine, a matchmaking system, a notification pipeline, and it has technical debt that's been sitting untouched by design since before some of you started your current jobs. 3 things I want to show you: where the app's foundation actually came from, what happens when a broken core system got fixed, and what happened to the feature that put the whole thing on the map. Then at the end, the part that actually keeps me up at night a little, which isn't any of that, it's what all 3 of those things together are optimized for, and how well that part works on me specifically. Someone who can explain the mechanism out loud and still can't stop. So before Pokemon Go existed, Niantic shipped a different game called Ingress. Same studio, same core loop, wildly smaller audience. Players walked around in the real world capturing portals, almost always tied to public art, historical markers, murals, little landmarks nobody ever had bothered to catalog. Ingress ran for years before Pokemon was a public idea, and the entire time it was quietly doing something much more valuable than entertaining its small, devoted player base. It was building a location database. Every portal a player nominated, every landmark somebody walked to and tagged, went into a dataset that took years of unpaid, crowdsourced human labor to assemble. When Pokemon Go launched in 2016, it didn't build a new world. It reskinned Ingress's world. Portals became gyms and Pokestops, same coordinates, same underlying database, new sprites drawn on top. The thing that felt, at launch, like a miracle of location-aware engineering, gyms and stops appearing at exactly the right real-world landmarks in cities all over the planet on day one, wasn't miraculous at all. It was inherited. Somebody else's multi-year crowdsourced data collection project wearing a new coat of paint. And I'm going to be careful here, because I don't think reuse is a sin. Reuse is usually the smart move. If you've got a location database that took years to build and it's already reasonably accurate, rebuilding it from scratch for a new product would be insane. I'd have made the same call. Most of you would have too. The part that's actually the problem is not architectural, it's rhetorical. Pokemon Go got covered at launch as a leap forward in augmented reality and location gaming, not as a mature crowdsourced geographic dataset gets a new front end, which is more accurate and a little less exciting of a sentence. The engineering story that got told wasn't the engineering story that happened. And that matters, because I've watched this happen inside companies a lot. A team ships a new product on top of an old, unaudited data layer nobody touched in years, and the pitch deck says, built from the ground up. because built from the ground up is a little better of a slide than we found a foundation somebody poured a decade ago and we're pretty sure it's still sound. We didn't check because we didn't have the budget to. You are not shipping a new building just because you put a new storefront on it. You're shipping whatever the foundation can bear, plus a little paint. Knowing which one you actually built before you go tells the story of which one you built. The original gym system in 2016, its launch version, was universally hated. It was hated for the very specific structural reasons. Gyms ran on a mechanic called prestige. To take a gym, you fought your way in. To keep it, you or your teammates had to keep training it indefinitely against anyone who showed up. There was no cap, no decay, no natural end state. Whoever had the most time to spend standing in a parking lot tapping on a screen won, and I'm not saying I did that, but I might have done that. Basically, not the most skilled player, not the best team composition, the most available one. That's not a bug. That's a system whose outcome is fully determined by an input, available hours, that has nothing to do with the thing it's supposed to be measuring, which is who's actually good at the game. I see this exact failure mode in production systems constantly, and it's usually dressed up as a leaderboard, a queue, or an on-call rotation. Whoever can absorb the most unbounded load wins. We call that a meritocracy because it's got a scoreboard attached. In 2017, Niantic did a real rework. Prestige got replaced with a motivation system. Gyms decay over time unless someone's actively defending them. Berries feed motivation back up. It's a different mechanic, and the community mostly called it a fix, and it changed something real. But let's pay attention to what it didn't change. A gym still only functions if there's a reliable flow of nearby players interacting with it. In a dense city, the new system smooths out the old failure pretty nicely. In a rural area, or honestly a lot of suburban areas on a rainy Tuesday, gyms just sit there. Nobody defends them because nobody's around to defend them. Nobody attacks them because there's nobody to fight over. The gym doesn't get contested, it gets forgotten indefinitely because the entire system function still depends on a volume of nearby player traffic that a large fraction of the actual map doesn't have. The perfect example is my neighborhood has a Pokemon gym, and if I put my Pokemon in there, he is stuck there for potentially a month plus. So the original failure was one person can dominate forever by outlasting everyone else. The rework didn't remove that dependency on player density. It just changed the shape the failure takes when density is low. It's from one person camps it to nothing happens here ever. That's not the same bug fixed. That's the same underlying assumption, unexamined, wearing a different symptom. I've sat in more retro meetings than I can count where a team declares a system fixed because the specific failure mode from the postmortem stopped reproducing. And then nobody asks the harder question, which is whether the fix addressed the actual dependency the original bug was exposing, or did it just move the point where that dependency breaks? A retry queue that quietly grows forever isn't a fix for an unreliable downstream service. It's a more patient version of the same problem, with a delay bolted on it so it fails somewhere you're not looking at the dashboard for. The refactor didn't fix the failure. It relocated it to wherever nobody was watching closely enough to call it a regression. Now let's talk about augmented reality. Augmented reality was the entire pitch of summer 2016, if you remember. It's why there's news footage of grown adults standing in fountains, why there's a genuine cultural memory of a Pikachu appearing to sit on somebody's actual kitchen floor through their actual phone camera. That feature is the reason a huge percentage of people who've never played the game since know what it is all about. It was the launch keynote demo. It worked exactly as a launch keynote demo is supposed to work. It got the room's attention. If you played a game today, or ask literally anyone who's played it for more than a handful of times, their AR mode is off. It's a toggle in the settings, defaulted on, and almost, at least my sample size of every experienced player, they go in and they switch it off within the first week and never switch it back on. The reasons are boring and completely legitimate. It drains the battery fast. It makes the actual mechanic of aiming and catching harder because now you're also trying to hold a phone steady and track the Pokemon that's superimposed over a moving real world camera feed instead of a stable static background. And it adds friction to something you're doing 40 times in a play session. The feature that sold the app is a feature nobody who actually plays the app chooses to use. But it didn't get removed. It's still there. It gets a new coat of visual polish periodically. It still gets a mention in the marketing when there's a new framework to show off. It is essentially permanently a demo feature living inside a production app, maintained because it earned its keep once at launch, and nobody's willing to be the one who deletes the thing that put the company on the map, even though its actual ongoing daily usage is close to zero. Think of it like the concept of a car sitting on a rotating platform at the auto show. It's the reason people walk over to your booth in the first place. It has doors that open like wings and a dashboard made of something that isn't going into production. Nobody's driving it home. Nobody's supposed to. Its entire job was to get you to walk closer and look at the sedan parked right behind it, the one you're actually going to buy. The problem isn't that AR mode exists. Concept cars earning their keep at the show is a completely legitimate reason to build one. The problem is treating that concept car like it's still the product in a roadmap conversation 3 years after everyone in the building quietly stopped driving it. I bet almost every engineer listening to this has a version of this exact feature sitting in their own code base right now. The thing that got the loudest applause at the launch demo, that nobody used in production in a year, that still technically support it because deprecating it feels like admitting the applause didn't mean what everyone wanted it to mean. So here's where I have to be fair to Niantic and where the argument gets a little less comfortable. Because up to this point, it's easy to sit here and feel superior about somebody else's technical debt. Everything I just walked through, the reused foundation, the relocated failure, the concept car nobody drives, that's the architecture. The architecture is provably lazy in places, unfixed in places, propped up on a decade-old dataset in places, and none of that is the reason the app still has tens of millions of monthly active users a decade later. The reason is a completely different system, one that got nowhere near the same level of neglect. Raid passes, a catch streak that resets to zero the moment you miss a single day, or a PokeStop spin streak that also resets to zero if you missed a day. It's engineered specifically so that the cost of skipping feels larger than the 5 minutes it would take to not skip. Then we have Community Day, one Saturday a month, appointment-based, deliberately scarce, built to make you feel like you missed something real if you weren't there. Spawn rates for some rare Pokemon tuned on a variable schedule, not a fixed one. The exact same reinforcement structure behind a slot machine, because a reward you can't predict the timing of is measurably more compelling than a reward you can set your watch to. None of that is an accident, and none of it is lazy. That system got the careful, iterated, data-driven engineering attention that the gym rework and the AR feature never got, because that system is the one actually tied to the metric the company is optimized around, which is whether you open the app tomorrow. We keep grading systems like it's on one axis. Is it well built? Is the architecture clean? Is the debt paid down? Pokemon fails that test in at least 3 specific documentable places, and I just spent the last few minutes walking through them. And the test I gave isn't the test that determines whether the app won. Good engineering and successful engineering are correlated often enough that we start teaching them as the same word. But they're not. They're two different axes. You can max out either one, mostly independent of the other. And the uncomfortable version of that sentence is that the axis, this app maxed out, is the one that predicts revenue. And the axis it left half built is the one we actually praise in a code review. And here's the specific reason I don't get to sit above this one. This isn't just a story about someone else's app. I know all of this. I could diagram the retention loop on a whiteboard before you finish asking me to. I teach a version of this exact argument, that a system engineered around behavioral metrics will outperform a system engineered around technical elegance. And I still spun that PokeStop this morning. Seeing the mechanism clearly and having a change to your behavior are two separate events. And the first one does not reliably cause the second one. And I am not the exception to that. I'm just a version of it with a little better vocabulary for describing what's happening to me while it happens. So here's what I actually want you to take from this. And it's not go delete Pokemon Go off your phone, because I'm not going to, so I'd be a hypocrite asking you to. It's this. The next time your team ships something that wins, a feature that takes off, a product that finds an audience, a system that everybody's suddenly excited about, go back and actually separate the two questions before you let the win answer both of them at once. Is this well engineered? And completely independently, is this why it's winning? Those questions have different answers more often than our instincts want to admit. And a team that only ever asks the first one is going to keep getting surprised by which of their systems actually matter to the business. A team that only ever asks the second one is going to keep accumulating exactly the kind of debt I spent this whole episode walking through. The reuse foundation, nobody re-audited it. The fix that only relocated the failure. The concept car still parked in the roadmap. Both mistakes are real. They're just not the same mistake, and they don't get caught by the same review. Pokemon Go isn't a cautionary tale where bad engineering eventually caught up with it. It's been almost a decade, and it hasn't, and it might not. Sometimes the thing that wins really is the thing that's lazily built in 3 places and brilliantly engineered in exactly one place that mattered for the metric somebody was actually optimizing. Learning to tell which place is which in your own systems before the postmortem tells you is most of the job. That's this episode of Chaotic Commits. I'm Joanne Skiles, who can explain exactly why this app is badly built and opened it twice while I was writing this sentence. New episodes wherever you get podcasts, no highlight reels, just the commit history. I'll see you in the next one.